March 10th, 2025. I'm sitting here writing jokes about the liberal leadership race, reading through comments on YouTube and watching videos and taking in some commentary and realizing how many people think this was a federal election. It wasn't, it was a leadership race. Did you realize that back in 2022, Pierre Poilievre was elected to be the leader of the Conservatives with 70% of the vote, 295,000 votes? Double what Mark Carney got. Double. And yet, for some reason, Carney will get the chance to beat Polyev in a leadership race, in the prime minister race. Now, I realize that the real problem here is that we have an unelected leader. What they call an unelected leader. It's a little bit of a confusing term because you normally, when you win a leadership race for a party, you do it after an election has been lost by a previous leader. So in this case, Pierre Poilievre was elected into office after Aaron O'Toole lost to Justin Trudeau. So they decided they needed a new leader, and they elected Pierre Poilievre. But in this case, Justin Trudeau resigned before the 2025 election. Chances are he did it because he knew there was no way he was going to win this one, and they installed Mark Carney for probably somewhere between 2 weeks and a month, going into a new election, knowing that was likely their best chance to retain as many seats as possible. It's very unlikely that Mark Carney wins this election. Extraordinarily unlikely. In fact, in a lot of cases, polls have the Conservatives, well, I mean, polls are what they are, but they have Conservatives winning with anywhere between 45% and 60% of the vote. It's reasonable. Well, reasonable numbers considering what the public opinion of the Liberal Party right now. But let's not act like this is something out of the ordinary. It isn't. It isn't. This simply feels strange because it was a party election, party leadership election before the federal election instead of after it. If Trudeau had run for prime minister again, he would have been replaced anyways, because this time he would have lost. Now, the ironic part of this is because Trudeau resigned, he retains his perfect 3-0 record in elections. When really, he should be 3-1. Come on now. That's not fair. We didn't get to blemish his record. What's the one part we missed? But truthfully, there was a lot about Trudeau that was starting to fall apart. If you watch that guy in the house, on the floor, talking to he just had lost so much of his energy, so much of his power, so much of his strength, so much of everything that got you to elect him that there's no way he was going to make it through another election. Carney taking over, I wonder, with all the talk about the WEF and all of the issues with thinking about everything that was going on, all of the conspiracy theories and the Canada is doomed and blah, 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 blah. I wonder, I wonder if this is more about Mark Carney relieving Justin Trudeau than it is about him taking prime minister. I thought for a while, for a few days, I kind of kept to myself, but I thought for a little while that it's possible that Mark Carney is doing this for what comes after he's prime minister, rather than actually being prime minister. It's entirely unlikely that he stays on as leader if he loses, which means that there will be another liberal candidate, which may be the reason that those liberal candidates backed away from the podium. They all knew. The Liberal Party is well aware that they are well behind the 8 ball in the polls. They know. So instead of blemishing any one of their records or giving the people a bad opinion of the next Liberal leader, Mark Carney takes the spot, loses the election, then goes back to the bank, and somebody else takes over. And I think that's what's going to happen. It doesn't take much to get there except being able to understand that millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires are human beings and they do have friendships and sometimes they do things for each other. Is Mark Carney going to win prime minister? Probably not. He might, but probably not. But I think I don't know if he's too proud, maybe too inexperienced. Maybe he will stay on as Liberal leader. Maybe he will. But I can't think of any other reason why this race between the Liberal candidates would be so calm. This doesn't, that's the part that doesn't make any sense. Normally, you're fighting with each other to win this role that you want. But Freeland and Gould and Bayless just didn't want to fight. And anybody who did want to fight was ejected. Chandra and Ruby Dalla, both eliminated. And they were willing to put up a fight for the spot, but they were eliminated. And it's odd because the person who wants it most often will be the one who gets it. But this time, they pick Carney, kind of out of a hat, what seemed seemingly out of a hat. But I wonder about the Liberal part. But when they lose the election again, they may have to do this again. And if they do, watching who enters that race will tell us a lot about what this race was about. Because again, this was a sham. It was an obvious sham. They disqualified over half of the Liberal voters. 150,000, only 150,000 votes were cast, and 80%, 85% of them went for Carney. I'd like to know what the numbers would have been if those other 250,000 voters had actually voted, but the results probably wouldn't have changed that much. But I doubt it stays at 85%. Does it matter? Not really. Again, 2022, Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader, 295,000 votes, 70% of the popular. So it's not out of the ordinary. It's not the end of the world. It isn't really a problem. But now the real campaigning begins. The sideshow is now over. The real campaign starts tomorrow, almost today. And that's the whirlwind. That's the rallies, that's the podcast, that's a hearing all of the plans. And I understand when people say, well, Poilievre was a busy guy, Mark Carney's a busy guy. Yes. But let's also remember that Carney took the time to do the American circuit and to show up at the rallies that he was attending. A lot of people have a lot of give when it comes to this stuff. I don't, because exposure is everything. And you're coming into a role that is a 27-hour a day role as it is. So what you're doing is you're showing us what that you're willing to put in that time. And on top of that, PB Patrick Bet David, when he said nobody thinks Pierre Poilievre is lazy, nobody can accuse Mark Carney of being lazy. Nobody can accuse anyone who qualifies for Prime Minister of Canada of being lazy or stupid. They do it all the time, but those people are retarded. It's not true. It isn't. They've put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and done a lot of very smart things to get in the positions that they're in. Underestimating their intelligence is only going to hurt you and really tells on yourself and your own brain power. What we need to do is we need to look at if you want I what I would like to see And I think the solution for the for Pierre's showing up, for Pierre's visibility, is recordings of the rallies taken by local reporters and just posted on YouTube. I understand that they don't get a lot of views and they're not really monetizable. But if what people want is more appearances, a speech at a rally, and then a question and answer session after the speech is done is as good as a podcast, if not better. You aren't really going to get those viral moments because there's not much gotcha in there. But as a creator, you got to work with what you get. And as much as it annoys me, you don't want to create moments that don't exist either. So AI and getting attention and thumbnails and all this stuff is all well and good. Again, being critical is part of being fair, but so is being positive. And if somebody does something good, you say that's good. And if somebody says that's bad, you say that's bad. You need to be critical in both directions. You need to be critical. You need the freedom to be able to be critical. Um, I'm finding this to be a very easy topic to make fun of because of a lot of it's how much misinformation there is, particularly around this particular leadership race. Um, yes, Mark Carney skipped straight from the bank into being Prime Minister of Canada. What I find frustrating is the number of people who are insisting that the election isn't going to happen. I think the election's going to happen. I'm almost certain of it. Particularly if I'm right about Mark Carney taking the position because no one else really wanted it at this point in time. Give it a couple of months to see what the Liberal Party does, and we'll know the truth about why Mark Carney took the appointment as candidate. Because personally, that's been my biggest question. Why would a guy doing so well with a bank that size, making that kind of money, even bother with Prime Minister? Why bother? The answer could be he's taking a role as placeholder. He's going to do some things that are good for the country. He's going to run the race. He will likely lose, and then he will go back to what he was doing before. But try not to get caught up in all of the hysteria around this because it actually doesn't exist. Canada might be broken. As it is, it needs to be adjusted. We aren't going to like all the adjustments that get made, but it's not the end of the world when something doesn't go your way. And in the case of the Liberal Party, if you're a conservative voter, it doesn't matter who their leader is. It doesn't matter. You still got to win. And if you are out there thinking that Mark Carney is that bad of a candidate, then be happy that he won. Because if he's really that bad of a candidate, Polyev should be able to beat him no problem. But again, whether it was Carney or Freeland or Gould, it doesn't matter. Still got to win. Still got to get the conservative votes. And you still got to get people to the polls. Still gotta get people out to vote, regardless who your competition is. It shouldn't matter. Anyways, um, the liberal race was boring. We got a good look at who liberal voters are and who signs up for the party. Again, most people that were at the event looked like they were working. They had their cameras out and they were shooting, taking shots and making stories. But again, the reality is this was not the federal election. This man is prime minister right now because he has to be. In a couple of weeks, you'll get the chance to change that. So we'll change it if that's what we're going to do. I got to get back to making all this stuff funny, so I'm going to go. But take it easy, guys. It's not the end of the world. You're fine. Might have been rigged. Might be. But I doubt it. Still like to see where those 250,000 votes went, though. Take care.